We're all constantly navigating this world of invisible forces, these subtle codes that shape our every move, from, how we run a meeting to even just how we wait in line for a coffee. So today, let's pull back that curtain and really explore the hidden architecture of our social lives.
Okay, let me ask you something. Why don't we face the back wall in an elevator? I mean, really think about it. There's no law against it, right? No sign on the wall. And yet, almost universally, we all get in, we turn around, and we face the doors. So why? It seems like such a tiny, insignificant thing, but that one simple question, well, it's the key to understanding how our entire world works.
Well, that simple, unspoken agreement, it has a name. It's called a social norm. And it is just one of thousands of unwritten rules that we follow every single day, most of the time without even realizing we're doing it. And these norms, they are the absolute glue that holds our entire society together.
All right, so let's dive right into these invisible rules. To put it simply, social norms are just the shared expectations that guide how we act within a group. They're the reason our interactions are predictable, and they're what stop us from bumping into each other, both literally and figuratively.
And this is just so essential. I mean, can you even imagine a world without these norms? People just driving on whatever side of the street they feel like. Or what if someone just reached over and took food right off your plate at a restaurant? It would be total chaos, right? Well, norms are what create order out of all that potential chaos. They're what allow us to function together as a society.
Okay, so to really get where these norms come from, we have to pull apart two ideas that, well, they get tangled up all the time: society and culture. Now, they are deeply connected for sure, but they are not the same thing. And there's a really great way to think about it using a simple analogy: hardware versus software.
And this analogy just illustrates the difference so perfectly. Think of society as the hardware. It's the group of people, the physical structures, the institutions like government and family. It's the framework. And culture? That's the software. It's all the shared beliefs, the values, and yep, the social norms that run on that hardware. You could even say it's the operating system for being human.
So if culture is the software, then you can think of social norms as specific lines of that code. And just like in computer programming, not all lines of code carry the same weight, right? Some are way more important than others. Sociologists usually break them down into three main types.
And this right here is the crucial point. Norms, they tell us what's considered normal. That's it. They are the guideposts that help us navigate our social world. They tell us what's appropriate, what's expected, and maybe most importantly, what is completely out of bounds. Okay, so first up, you've got folkways. These are the really informal, everyday rules. Remember our elevator example? Facing the wrong way violates a folkway. And the consequence? You might get some weird looks, but that's about it. Then things get more serious. We have mores. These have real moral significance. We're talking about things like theft or violence. Breaking one of these often means serious punishment, like going to jail. And then, at the very top, you have taboos. These are behaviors that are just so repulsive they're almost universally condemned. Think something like cannibalism. The punishment here is extreme social rejection.
All right, now this is where it gets really fascinating. Because every single culture has folkways, mores, and taboos. But, and this is a big but, not every culture enforces them with the same level of intensity. Some cultures are incredibly strict, while others are way more permissive. And this difference is what the social psychologist Michelle Gelfand calls the divide between tight and loose cultures.
So you've got your tight cultures, like Japan or Germany. They have very strong norms and a really low tolerance for anyone who breaks them. Picture Germans patiently waiting at a crosswalk even when there are 0 cars coming. That's a tight culture. Then you have loose cultures like New Zealand or Brazil. They're pretty much the opposite. They have weaker norms and are much more tolerant when people do something different. I mean, New Zealand literally had an official national wizard for years whose job was just to entertain people. True story.
And what this all leads to is a pretty fundamental trade-off. Tight cultures, they are amazing at creating order. They tend to have less crime, more self-control, their public clocks are even perfectly synchronized. But on the other hand, loose cultures excel at openness. They're often more creative, they're more tolerant of all kinds of differences, and they are much more open to change.
So that brings up a huge question, right? What's the logic here? Why would one group evolve to be so strict while another becomes so relaxed? Well, it's definitely not random. There is a very powerful underlying reason for all of this. And the answer that Michelle Gelfand's research uncovered is, it's simple, but it's also incredibly profound. The single biggest predictor of how tight a culture becomes is the amount of threat it has faced throughout its history. Think about it. When a society is constantly under threat, it needs strict rules and punishments just to make sure people can coordinate and survive.
And these threats can be anything, really, from frequent natural disasters, which Japan has dealt with for centuries, to something as simple as high population density. I mean, just look at Singapore. It has 20,000 people per square mile. As Gelfand puts it, that's like living in an elevator your entire life. You're going to need some strong rules, like, say, a ban on chewing gum, just to keep things from descending into chaos. And cultures that have faced fewer of these historical threats, well, they can afford to be a lot looser.
Okay, so this is a really powerful framework for thinking about the world. But the real question is, why does any of this matter? Like right now, how does it actually help us understand the world we're all living in today?
Well, looking at things through this tight, loose lens, it helps explain so much. It sheds a ton of light on political divides. For example, when people feel threatened by a pandemic, by economic instability, whatever it is, they're much more likely to vote for strong leaders who promise tighter rules and more order. It explains differences between social classes, and it even explains why some companies are amazing at innovating, that requires looseness, while other companies are incredible at just executing, which requires a lot of tightness.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Neither extreme is actually better. A culture that gets too loose can just descend into chaos, but one that gets too tight, it becomes oppressive. And the research actually shows that the societies with the lowest suicide rates and the highest rates of happiness, they're the ones that find that Goldilocks balance. You know, not too hot, not too cold. Just the right mix of order and freedom.
The thing is, these rules of culture, they're all around us, all the time, shaping our world in ways we rarely even see. But once you start looking for them, in the elevator, at the crosswalk, in your own workplace, you can't unsee them. They're everywhere. So I'll leave you with a question. What invisible rule are you going to notice tomorrow?